When I was in junior high, I was a member of the table tennis club. One weekend, we had to go to a school in Itabashi Ward for a practice match. I had heard rumours that school was haunted, but I didn't pay much attention to them. About halfway through my match, the ball rolled over to the edge of the gym, so I ran over to pick it up. But as I bent down to grab it, suddenly I felt someone put their hand on the scruff of my neck and push me forward. We were in the middle of a serious game, so I was annoyed and threw my arm back without looking, but I hit nothing but air. I turned around to yell, but nobody was there. There wasn't even anyone nearby. But I had definitely felt a hand and a strong force on my neck. It was so weird. Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2 is now out. If you're interested in learning more about some of the most bizarre, strange, and even terrifying crimes that have taken place in Japan over the last few decades, then make sure to grab your copy now. You can find 25 new cases of missing persons, unsolved mysteries, and truly bizarre crimes that still confuse people today. That's Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan, Volume 2, out now. This week, we're heading back to school for a variety of tales to remind you why tests weren't the only things you should fear at school. First up, some kids head to the music room, hoping to scare each other with a silly tale of it being haunted. But what if it actually is? What might actually be lurking in there when no one's around? Find out in Empty School. This happened when I was an elementary school student. Yukie-chan, Michio-chan and I were staying behind after school to work on something for the upcoming exhibition. Michio-chan was a quiet girl who was often sick and missed school, so because she wasn't able to make anything in time, she helped us finish our projects instead. When we'd done enough for the day and started cleaning up, I told Yukie-chan a scary story to try to scare her. Did you know that if you visit the music room at 4:44, you can hear the piano playing all by itself? Do you want to check it out? Yukie-chan was a little chubby and good at sports, just like one of us boys. But I was a brat, and Yukie-chan was a model student, so I wanted to get back at her for always telling me off. "Stop it, it's already dark," Michio-chan said, scared. But Yukie-chan just looked annoyed. "Are you stupid? There's no way. Why don't you check it out by yourself?" she said. She didn't go along with my plan, so it wasn't very fun. I finished putting my things away, and when I left the art room, I could hear a piano playing on the third floor. I turned to look at Yukie-chan. "What time is it?" I asked. Her face went pale. "There's no way. Someone must be up there," she said, but she looked rather frightened. "Let's check it out," I said, running up the stairs excitedly. "Wait! Don't leave me here!" Yukie-chan screamed and started running too. "Hey, where are you going? Wait!" Michio-chan said from behind us. The piano was playing a proper song, so someone had to be in there, I thought. I stopped in front of the music room and waited as Yukie-chan caught up. "Oh, it's just the teacher." Miss Takahashi was inside the room sitting before the piano. She was the homeroom teacher for a class from a different grade, so I didn't know her all too well. But when she noticed us, she said, "Hurry up and go home. Goodbye." "Goodbye," we said, and as we were about to leave, Michio-chan finally caught up, out of breath. I told you to wait. Jeez. See, I told you. It was just Miss Takahashi. Come on, let's go home, Yukie-chan said. I ran, leaving the other two behind. When I turned around, Yukie-chan was following me, but Michio-chan was looking in the music room. I'm gonna leave you here. The empty school was dark and gloomy, so I had hoped Yukie-chan might be afraid. But I felt bad leaving Michio-chan all alone, so I waited for her by the stairs. We went to the staff room on the second floor to return the art room keys. When I handed them to our homeroom teacher, a few of the other teachers said goodbye as we left. Huh? Yukie-chan suddenly said. I followed her gaze and she was looking at Miss Takahashi, who we had apparently just seen in the music room. Miss Takahashi, weren't you just in the music room? I asked. No, I wasn't. Nobody's up there right now. The key for the music room was still in the staff room as well. And if the key was there, that meant upstairs had to be locked. Yukie-chan and I looked at each other. So, it wasn't her then, we said as we left the school. So then, who was it? It was a female teacher. But as we chatted, Michio-chan was like, Huh? There was nobody in the music room. I didn't hear any piano either. She wasn't the type of girl to joke or lie about things like that, I thought, and the look on her face and tone of her voice made both Yukie-chan and I go pale. Well, I saw and heard something. Me too. For a while, we trembled on the spot, unable to move. The next day, Yukie-chan and I both broke out in a fever and missed school, but we never saw anything strange in the music room again. The kid in this next story notices something strange when he returns to class. Someone apparently trying to hide behind the curtain. But when class starts and the figure doesn't move, well, who or what might it actually be? Find out in Who's That Sitting There? When I was in the 3rd grade, I went to the toilet during break time and then came back to class. When I got there, the curtain at the end of the room was bulging. I thought someone was playing around and hiding there, so I ignored it. I knew someone was just being stupid and waiting for someone to notice them, so I deliberately pretended not to notice. It was kind of an unwritten rule amongst us boys to ignore stuff like this, because it was funnier to see the person get angry when no one engaged with them. Shortly after I returned to my seat, the bell rang, and the teacher came back to class from the teacher's room. Seeing this, the other kids all ran back to their seats. We went through our usual greetings, and when I went to sit down, I turned to look at the window, curious. The bulge was still there. Perhaps they were unable to leave now that the teacher was here and they'd get spotted. I looked around the class to see who the idiot was, but there wasn't a single empty seat. However, I could see the curtain moving where the bulge was, so there was no mistake. Somebody was definitely there. As I was staring at the curtain, the teacher got angry at me, telling me to stop looking outside. So I turned back to look at the blackboard. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I mean, did the teacher not see it too? Once class ended, I ran over to the curtain and pulled it back. A familiar face looked back at me. It was A, a troublemaker in class who, these days we might say had some learning difficulties. I asked him what he was doing, and As I thought, the teacher coming back made it difficult for him to leave, so he just waited there till class was over. He was the reason the curtain bulged like that. But if that were true, then who on earth was sitting in A's seat during class? The kids in this next story find something strange in their dorms when cleaning. Someone has written the word die, almost like a curse, on the back of some doors. And no matter how many times they erase it, it keeps coming back. But who or what is doing it? And what does it really mean? Find out in Strange Graffiti Incident. When I was a student, I lived in a dorm, but in the first grade, something called the Strange Graffiti Incident happened. It happened right before the summer holidays. When we were all cleaning the dorms, several doors were discovered to have the word die written on them. The letters were small and written in pencil, and covered a tightly packed 5-centimeter square near the corner of the door. This graffiti was found on about 40% of the doors, and while everyone was kind of creeped out, we figured it was just a prank and put it behind us. But when everyone came back from the summer holidays, that graffiti was there again. And again, it was on about 40% of the doors. At first, the students who stayed behind denied that any of them did it, me included. Everyone kind of forced themselves into thinking that an outsider must have done it. And again, we put it behind us. Of course, the graffiti was removed again first. But sometime later, the graffiti appeared again. No matter how many times it was cleaned off, it would appear in the same rooms again. And before long, it spread to other areas, like the vending machines in the common area, the entrance, and even the letterboxes. By that point, we were so creeped out that we went to talk to the dorm mother about it. "I don't want to believe that one of the students is doing it," she said. "But that would mean an outsider is coming in to do it, so we must be careful." And so they decided to install some security cameras by the entrance. But still, the graffiti didn't stop. Every once in a while, it appeared again. Over half a year passed since we first noticed it, and during the spring holidays, one of the students quit school and moved out of the dorm. I was at home at the time, so I didn't know what happened, but this is what I later heard. During the winter holidays, that student who quit wasn't feeling well, and so she called both an ambulance and the police. When the other students and dorm mother asked why she called the police if she was just feeling unwell, she said strangely, "There's a monster in my room. That's why I'm sick." To be quite honest, I called the police because this isn't something that anyone ordinary can deal with. Over the next week, the same thing happened another 3 times. "This dorm is haunted. You should tear it down and start anew. You need to purify this place." That student kept on complaining. By this point, the dorm mother called her parents to let them know what was happening. She also contacted the local fire brigade and police to talk to them about it, and they all agreed that if another call came in from that student, they would confirm with the dorm mother before sending any ambulances. The winter holidays ended. Test week arrived, and by the time the spring holidays came around, she was still regularly calling ambulances. The dorm mother continually received phone calls from the police and fire brigade. Unable to put up with it any longer, the dorm mother once again called the student's parents, and together they spoke to the girl. "Around the summer holidays last year, a monster appeared. That's why I went around everyone's rooms and put up wards. But they all thought it was a prank and erased them. Thanks to that, the monster has been appearing more and more frequently. I'm not the one in the wrong here," she said angrily. Everyone erasing the graffiti must have set her off, and so she went around all the rooms writing "Die" on the doors again. Thanks to that, all the students who stayed behind during the holidays learnt what happened. And this led to her parents moving her out of the dorm, and she left the school as well. And that's how the strange graffiti incident went. When I heard that, I was worried that the school might actually be haunted. But nothing ever happened to me, and I graduated just fine. It would seem that music rooms around the country are haunted, and this one is no exception. The music teacher keeps complaining of an old organ playing by itself in the room. But what's the truth behind this creepy story? Find out in Old Organ. This happened when I was in the 5th grade. At our school, we had organs instead of desks for each of the students in the music room. Because we lived in the countryside, these organs were pretty old and run down. Our music teacher was a middle-aged man by the name of Y. He was a bit snobby and high-strung, but one day he suddenly said something odd. "The other day, I heard the organ playing even though nobody was touching it." At first, he apparently thought it was a student playing a prank, but when he was working in the room by himself after school one day, again, he heard it. Sometime after that, we were all singing during music class when Y-sensei suddenly screamed. "I can hear it!" he said, taking his hands off the piano he was playing. And as we all held our breath, for sure, you could hear the quiet sounds of an organ in the room. "That's the B note! The B note!" Y-sensei said, annoyed. Eventually, whenever Y-sensei heard the organ during music class, he would make all the students stand and hold their hands in the air as he walked around, to make sure that it wasn't any of us doing it. Every time the organ played, it was the B note, and as it played in the quiet room with all us students standing with our hands in the air, it sure was a creepy sight. When one boy, curious, tried to open the lid of the organ, the teacher yelled at him. "Don't touch it! We'll all see something we shouldn't," he said, stopping him. This went on for a while, and then in March the following year, Y-sensei finally quit. The reason he gave the school was because of that organ. I don't remember what happened to the organ after that. The fact I don't remember anything must mean that after Y-sensei quit, it must have stopped playing by itself, and before long, the students forgot about it as well. When I was in junior high, I heard that Y-sensei had fallen ill and was getting medical treatment. And then, at my coming-of-age ceremony, I heard that he had passed away a few years earlier, but the cause of death was unknown. I don't mean to connect his death to the organ, but recently, I've been wondering if organs can just start playing by themselves without anyone touching them. I looked it up and apparently they can't, but if anyone knows anything about them, please let me know. Two friends go to school early so they can pretend to take part in their daily mandated running around the school. But when they head to the classroom early one morning, they find they might not be alone this time. Find out why in Going to School Early. This happened a few decades ago, so I'll do my best to get the details straight. When I was in the 5th grade, our class always had to run an early morning marathon for health reasons. We had to run around the school before first period began. My friend and I hated running, so we got there 30 minutes earlier than everyone else, pretended to run, then played soccer. One day, I got to school even earlier than usual, so the usual friend I hung out with wasn't there yet. It was 7 a.m. My friend wouldn't be there for another 15 minutes, and it would be another 45 until the other students arrived. It wasn't very fun to play soccer by myself, so I decided to wait for my friend in the classroom. While I waited, I read the Manga History of Japan, and when I heard someone's voice, I looked up. But nobody was there. Huh? I thought. And then I saw the cleaning closet was slightly open. Inside, someone was looking at me and smiling. It was too dark to see their face, but it had to be my stupid friend. "Ah, he's late today," I said, pretending to talk to myself. I stood up and then suddenly leapt across the desks as though I was Minamoto no Yoshitsune, jumping across the 8 boats in full armor. And then I slammed the cleaning closet shut. I used my body to keep the door shut, and then I hit it a few times while laughing. "You give up?" I asked my friend inside. What an idiot I was. But then the classroom door opened, and my friend walked inside. "What are you doing?" he asked, his tone cold. "Eh? But weren't you just in the cleaning closet?" I asked. "Why on earth would I be in the stinky closet?" "But anyway, who's that?" he asked, pointing to the window. I turned to look, and the curtains that were tied by the edge of the windows were bulging like someone was standing behind them. We had both hidden behind them at some point, so we knew what that looked like. "No, I'm the only one here," I said. As I stood there confused, my friend threw the soccer ball he was holding at the curtain. "Who's there?" he screamed. But the ball didn't bounce back. It hit the soft curtain and then fell, this side now looking just like the empty curtains on the other side. "What the hell?" I thought, and then suddenly, the figure inside the cleaning closet started banging hard on the door. Scared, my friend and I both ran to the teacher's room. Our homeroom teacher wasn't there yet, but another one was. "There's a weirdo in the classroom," we said, and the teacher came back with us. The room was quiet. When the teacher opened the cleaning closet door, nobody was inside. "We got here early to go running, and when I was waiting for my friend," I said, when the teacher asked me to explain what was going on. I was sure she was going to get angry at me, but instead, she spoke gently. "You mustn't tell anyone about this. I'll speak to your homeroom teacher about it myself," she said. But my stupid friend and I didn't keep up our end of the deal, and when we told people what happened, it didn't take long for it to spread around the school. The teacher got really angry at us, but everyone was so scared that nobody ran in the mornings anymore. Either way, that strange sequence of events was so weird that even now I still clearly remember it. A group of high schoolers like to hang around in their club room once club activities for the day are done and share scary stories. But they shouldn't be there, so they're careful not to be spotted by the coach. But when an old member shows up one day, well, it seems this time they might literally be in the scary story themselves. Find out why in Scary Clubroom Story. We always had a lot of time after club activities for the day were finished and we had to wait for the bus. So it wasn't uncommon for us to remain in the clubroom and tell scary stories to pass the time. Now, when I say scary stories, in reality, they were mostly stories with no real punchline that made you laugh in the end. Stupid stuff like that. We also turned the lights off and blocked the door with an amp so the coach didn't realize we were still there. One day, I was in the clubroom with two guys who were 1 year older than me. It was still bright outside, so it wasn't really the best mood for telling scary stories. And as we were about to get up to leave, we suddenly heard a knock at the door. The three of us held our breath, thinking it might be the coach. But then we heard Kei-san's voice. He had graduated a year prior. "Hey, why is the door shut? Let me in," he said. He was a bit of a prankster, so I thought that maybe he had just come to hang out unannounced. But when I went to move the amp, one of the other guys stopped me. He was in a band with Kei-san outside of school. Kei-san said he had something to do at university today. He even said he couldn't make it to our studio practice. "There's no way he'd be here now," he said, and I froze. That voice on the other side of the door was definitely Kei-san's, and his friend also had a strange look on his face. As we were standing there, Kei-san, or the person who sounded like him, kept banging on the door. "What the hell, guys? Are you being for real right now? You're gonna make me cry. I'm gonna sing, you know. You want me to sing Jingle Bells?" Jingle Bells was kind of his trademark gag, and his voice and even way of speaking were all exactly Kei-san's. But for some reason, something about the situation just wasn't right. I don't know, maybe it would have been better if his voice suddenly changed and he screamed at us to open the door. But he stayed the same old Kei-san, and that made it even harder to open the door for him. Unable to bear it any longer, we called Kei-san. "Kei-san, where are you right now?" "Eh? Huh? I'm at university." As soon as he said that, the voice and other sounds outside stopped. We all got so scared that we fled out the clubroom window. As we were running, it seemed we accidentally hung up on Kei-san, and he called us back, worried. "What's going on with you guys? And what was all that screaming in the background just before?" It seemed we were the only ones who heard Kei-san's voice on the other side of the door. All this happened last April. Nothing has happened to any of us since then, including Kei-san, but I'm still scared of the clubroom. The student in this next story notices something odd whenever they borrow a book from the library. There is seemingly always a note addressed to them. But who is writing these notes, and how do they know which book they're even going to borrow next? Find out in Note in the Book. This happened when I was in my final year of high school. I borrowed a book from the library, and inside it I found a note. "Hello," it said. The next week, I borrowed a different book and it also had a note inside. "Hello, did you read my previous note?" After that, I found a note in the books I borrowed around once a week. Starting with that hello, the notes then spoke about my day. "Hello, you mustn't sleep during classics class." Stuff like that. The person who borrowed these different books before me was different each time, and I never heard of anyone else getting notes in their books either. I flicked through the pages to check if any notes were in there before borrowing the books, but even though there never was, When I checked later, there the note would be. I thought it had to be someone from school doing it, but it happened even when I wasn't near school or anyone from school too. After 3 or so months of this, I got scared and spoke to a friend about it. They said I should write a reply. "Hello," I wrote. "Thank you for your letters. However, I am graduating soon, so I won't be able to read them anymore. I'm sorry. Goodbye." I then put the note in the book and returned it. The next time I borrowed a book, there was another note in there. "Okay, bye-bye," it said. I never got any notes again after that. Some students notice something odd on the blackboard when they arrive at school one day. A face that they can't get rid of. But what's the horrifying truth behind this creepy art? Find out in Face on the Blackboard. I live in Hiroshima Prefecture, and I don't know how things are now, but when I was in elementary school, on August 6th each year, the day of the bombing, we would all go to school in a big group. Then, once we got there, they showed us films talking about the bombing and such. It happened during the 3rd grade, when we all went to school during the summer holidays. I walked with my friends who lived nearby, and we arrived just before we would have been late. When we got there, there was a big fuss going on in the classroom. "What's going on?" I asked. "Look at the blackboard. We can't get rid of that picture," someone said. I looked at the blackboard and there was a huge picture of a face or something on it. It's kind of hard to describe, but it was difficult to tell whether it was a child or an adult. It was a creepy, indistinct face, almost like its skin was peeling off. It wasn't like normal chalk lines, but like someone had smudged them by hand. 2 or 3 boys were doing their best to erase it with the blackboard eraser, while a few girls were crying because it was so creepy. Before long, the bell rang and the teacher arrived. He sensed the strange atmosphere and looked at us all. "What's wrong?" he asked, but then he looked at the blackboard. "Oh, what on earth is that?" He took the blackboard eraser from one of the boys holding it and tried to clean it off himself. "Who did this?" he asked angrily as he also tried his best to wipe it off. "What on earth? It won't come off. Who did this? Step forward, now." One of the girls then stood up. "I was the first here today, but it was already on the blackboard when I arrived," she said, almost in tears. She was a serious girl, so neither the teacher nor anyone else thought that she would lie about it. The teacher then tried to rub it clean with his hand, then even used his nails to scratch it, but nothing worked. That face refused to disappear. By that point, most of the girls in the class were crying. "Let's try a rag," the teacher said, leaving the classroom to grab a rag and bucket. When he left, the classroom fell silent, other than for the sobs of the girls. Then, everyone suddenly turned to look at the blackboard at once. I don't know why. Me included. Because of this, the room filled with the noise of desks and chairs sliding and moving across the floor. And then, the face disappeared. Almost like it got sucked into the blackboard itself. But as that face disappeared, a smile, like a crack, appeared on its lips. And then, it was gone. During festival preparations one year, a student passes away in an unfortunate accident. But as her classmates are preparing for their school festival later that year, it seems they're not alone. What's really going on? Find out in School Festival. This happened when I was in junior high, so several decades ago now. Where I lived, a large festival float was dragged around town during the annual summer festival. But during this particular year, there was an accident, and one of my classmates got pinned between the float and a house and died. According to those who saw it, she got hit hard in the stomach, but she quickly stood back up, repeating that she was okay over and over. But then, after taking a few steps, she collapsed. She was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and they performed emergency surgery on her, but her internal organs had ruptured, so they couldn't do anything for her. This happened in July. So, the day before our school festival in October, some of the students stayed behind until 8 or so, finishing monuments and such, while mothers from the PTA were still preparing for the cafes and bazaar. But then we noticed someone riding around the school grounds on a bike. We weren't allowed to ride bikes on the school grounds, and when the person passed under the security lights, I finally saw their face. It was that girl who died during the summer. She rode around the school grounds a few times in the dark, and then suddenly disappeared. Lots of other people were there at the time, so I didn't feel scared at all. Some of the mothers said that she must have wanted to take part in the festival too, and some cried because they felt so bad for her. Around 40 people or so from various rooms around the school saw her, so the story became pretty well known around town after that. I no longer live there anymore, but whenever I return for reunions and such, that story always comes up again. A game called Tsumuji-san is popular amongst girls at one school, and it involves summoning said invisible figure to push people around, literally. Over time, the game morphs to become a somewhat good luck charm. But who or what is Tsumuji-san, and is it really something they should be playing with? Find out in Tsumuji-san. When I was in elementary school, a game called Tsumuji-san was popular amongst the girls. First, you had to say something like, Tsumuji-san, Tsumuji-san, please enter this whirl. And then you pressed your fingers on the back of a girl's gym uniform and turned them to the left to create a whirl in the fabric. Then, during the next gym class, Tsumuji-san would hit that same spot where the whirl was created, and the girl would fall over. I think it was one of those suggestion-type games, but kids enjoyed it as a sort of occult game, because it was like you were being pushed by something invisible. But before long, this turned into a game of, if you don't fall down when pushed, then something good will happen to you. The chant also changed to Tsumuji-san, Tsumuji-san, may something good happen to so-and-so-chan. In time, that also changed to Tsumuji-san, Tsumuji-san, please grant so-and-so-chan's wish. And once that happened, the game exploded amongst the girls in class. But then one day, us boys were waiting in the hall outside the girls' changing room before gym class, when suddenly we heard a scream. One of the girls came running out and asked us to get the teacher. The health and safety leader from our class ran off and came back with the teacher and nurse, and they carried an unconscious girl out of the changing room and into a nearby classroom. I later asked one of the girls from her group what happened, and they said that one of the girl's friends made a whirl on the front of her uniform, not the back. Then, when she was getting changed, Tsumuji-san hit her from the front, not the back, and she fell over and hit her head before passing out. Luckily, she wasn't seriously injured, but after that, nobody played Tsumuji-san again. Finally this week, a prankster decides to have a little fun by hiding in a cleaning closet in the back of the room, and then bursting out during class. But as class goes on with no sign of him, the other children start to worry. Is he okay? What's really going on? Could he perhaps be stuck in there? Find out what's going on in Classroom Closet. This happened when I was in elementary school. I, a fool of a kid from the neighbouring class, told us one day that he was going to hide in our broom closet and then burst out during class before escaping, while everyone was screaming. It was a stupid, childish prank that I think was pretty common at the time. So at the back of our classroom, there were some shelves to put our bags, and to the left of that, near the hall, there was a tall closet with a door that held stuff like brooms, mops, and dustpans. I would hide in the closet before the teacher came, jump out during the lesson, and then, as everyone was laughing, he'd run out the door next to it. We were all looking forward to it, as we expected the teacher to get really angry at him as well. "Just you wait, okay? I'm really gonna do it." He was in oddly high spirits as he got into the metal closet, and then pulled the thin door shut behind him. Of course, there was no lock on the door. Before long, the teacher appeared, and class began, although I don't remember exactly what the lesson was about. Of course, everyone knew that I was hiding in the closet, so everyone was just waiting for him to appear. Nobody could focus on the lesson. Every now and then we'd all look back at the closet, and whenever we heard a small bang or something, everyone would try not to laugh. But as more and more time passed, there was no sign of I. Even all the noises stopped. I wondered if maybe he got cold feet at the idea of the entire class laughing at him, and so he gave up. He didn't fall asleep in there, did he? He'd be pretty stupid if he did. We all whispered and laughed. And then class ended. We all stood up, bowed, and then waited for the teacher to leave before rushing to the closet to open the door. Inside, I expected to find a sheepish eye, or maybe even see him sleeping while standing up. But as we opened the door, he suddenly tore out of the closet, screaming like a madman. His face was red from crying, and snot and drool covered his shirt, while his pants were covered in blood. What the hell? What happened? He then collapsed to the floor on all fours. His entire body was shaking, and he muttered something incomprehensible as he cried. Listening closer, he seemed to be saying stuff like, "The door wouldn't open. Nobody would open it for me." The whole school erupted into chaos, and I was immediately taken to the hospital. The teachers asked us all sorts of questions, but we didn't know anything either. It wasn't like we locked him in there to bully him or anything. Later, we learnt that I had intended to jump out just a few minutes after class started. Until then, he tried making just a few small sounds. And then, when he tried to jump out, the door wouldn't open. But the closet didn't have a key, nor could you lock it by turning a handle or anything like that. It was a simple push and pull door, and that was it. About halfway through the lesson, I started screaming for help. He banged on the door from the inside. That was apparently how he cut his hand, and screamed and kicked. However, there was no response from anyone in the class, and no one seemed to notice all the noise he was making, even though he could hear us. I said he then continued screaming for help and banging on the door until we finally opened it for him. But those of us in the classroom, including the teacher, didn't hear any screams or banging. Other than those first noises he made on purpose, we didn't hear anything. And because we were waiting for him to jump out, we were actually listening more closely than usual. Luckily, I only suffered light injuries. He didn't disappear, nor did he have to go to the mental hospital. And because he was safe, that was proof that we didn't bully him as well. There were several thin slits in the closet door that he was looking at us through, and because none of us noticed him, he banged on the door so hard that he started to bleed as he tried to get help. This is a true story from my time at elementary school. It doesn't involve ghosts or aliens or weirdos. It was just a creepy, baffling event that has no explanation. I've hesitated to ever talk to anyone about it, and this is my first time actually telling others what happened. Like, I never even spoke about it with my classmates at the time, not even at several different reunions. But writing it down here has made me feel a little better. Thank you. A huge thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Just Sawn, Emerald, and Kenneth Kawamoto. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2, out on Amazon right now. And check out our merchandise store at kowabana-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana. True Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.